Hey everybody, this is Mike LaPone from Symphony X and Mike LaPone's Silent Assassins, and this is SAGAS.
Hi, my name is Josh Freeman. I run DWI Clothing. We do a lot of stuff with SAGAS Metal Podcast. I have a store with all of their merch, exclusive. There's a US, UK, and Australian store where you can get any of their merch. There's going to be new designs coming up pretty soon. Also in the US store, for right now, I have this shirt right here, the original DWI shirt with the print on the back that says "Deal with it." I also have one of the better shirts that's sold so far, the Nap City shirt. And this one, my wife really likes, the Po Daddy shirt. All of these are available on the US store only for right now. But if you're a fan of SAGAS Metal Podcast, if you're a fan of any of these designs, go check it out. Go check out the link. I've set up 3 stores, so shipping is cheaper and faster depending on where you live. And if you guys can get to 500 subscribers on the SAGAS Metal Podcast YouTube page, we can do that even bigger and even better.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith, and I have a very special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, this is Jarvis Leatherby from the heavy metal band Night Demon.
Thank you again for taking the time to do this with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. So we'll be talking about the album Outsider. Album that just came out.
Yeah, our latest record came out March 17th of this year, 2023. It's a concept album that we put together, and it's been going good so far.
Nice. I've had obviously the chance to listen to it a few times for this podcast, and I gotta say, congratulations to you guys. It is a phenomenal album. Let's just start with that. Great work.
I appreciate that. Thanks. It took a lot of time together, so yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So first thing I want to know is, what was the creative process like for making this album possible? So you guys were all sitting down. What was the idea for this album? What was the initial thoughts and process behind it?
Well, we kind of started writing it at the beginning of the first lockdown, and we had a lot of time. The band is the previous 6 years before 2020. We had our previous 4 years. I think we had done 600 shows. So we were always on tour, and this was kind of a forced break for us. So we were enjoying our time, and we were able to spend a lot of time writing stuff. We just started trying to write random stuff here and there for a new record, and we came up with the idea to actually try and do a concept album. We had tried it a few times before on our previous releases, but everything kind of veered off the tracks. It's a really difficult thing to do, but again, since we had the time to do it, we just really put a lot of energy into it. So I mean, we spent a couple of years writing this record, and there were some breaks in between and stuff, but it was really, we just kept our focus on it, and we were able to complete a concept from start to finish. So
yeah. This might sound like a stupid question, but how hard is it to make a conceptual album compared to a normal album? What are the difficulties that maybe a listener, your average listener, wouldn't think about when making a conceptual album?
Well, it's harder to make a good one. There's been a lot out there. There's been some really great ones and some not so great. I think you need a really good story. You need a cohesive storyline, and the music needs to fall into that. You also need to make sure that I think it's a good idea that you write your lyrics more metaphorically instead of in a literal sense, because if somebody jumps in the middle, they're lost. And we made a record that, if you want to know the concept, we have a podcast where we do a whole story narration on it, and in the liner notes of the physical versions of the album, you can read the story, but a synopsis of it. but we didn't want to write an album where you literally had to try and figure it out by listening to it. It's more of an album where you can take your own meanings from it too, you know, if you want. The storyline is just for the hardcore fan, really, you know. But I think our biggest challenge was writing music to a theme or lyrics, you know, which is really tough when you're not a classically trained composer, you know. So but I think we successfully pulled that off, and that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on top of that, you guys are obviously you're one of the bands thrown around for resurrecting the traditional heavy metal or bringing back the rewave of that, and to do that plus a conceptual album at the same time, you know, kind of easy to do both those, you know, to maintain your normal sound plus do a conceptual spin on it. So yeah, it sounded really well coming all together.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. I mean, you know, we always want to expand from every album and try a little bit to think outside the box, you know. I mean, I think anything that we've done with heavy metal, traditional, like cliches, we've already done, and we just didn't really want to repeat ourselves on this one. So doing a concept album forced us to go into other places musically so that we were following along with what was happening in the idea, the themes of the story, you know.
Yeah. Do you think if COVID didn't exist, do you think this album would have came out very differently?
Yeah, I think it would have taken a lot longer. And I mean, we're pretty good with deadlines, but we've always been like not last minute, but rushing things, you know. So I think it did help. You know, the pandemic sucks for a lot of people, but I actually enjoyed it. It was it was like summer vacation for me. I hadn't had like a forced break ever, really, you know. So yeah, well, yeah, you can definitely tell, you know, the time into this, and because, you know, obviously you have tracks that are like, you know, 7 minutes long, the final track, not including the bonus track. You know, you have the prelude, which sets everything into motion. To me, this kind of feels similar, you know, not similar to like kind of a Symphony X kind of album. To me, it's like very, very conceptual, very mysterious, you know. It's a very alluring listen to me, you know. Over the few times I listen to it, it just kind of takes you back. You put headphones on and the world doesn't concern you anymore. It's just about these 9 tracks, you know. So yeah,
it's
really cool.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah,
that's cool to hear. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, I'm into that, man. I think that's a good way to put it, you know. But yeah, I mean, like with the longer songs, we're not a band that's ever had long songs. With those songs really go somewhere, though. They take you on a journey. We don't have a lot of repetition within our songs, you know. So a lot of metal bands traditionally have longer songs. We've always gone for the shorter song. It's only the longer songs are long because they need to be, not because we're milking, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You know, there's so many bands out there that have 6 5-minute songs, and you're already bored in the first 2 minutes. You're like, oh, fucking turn this off. But you guys actually, you know, with the few long songs you had, it was actually engaging. And as you said, every minute had a purpose. It wasn't just long for no reason.
Yeah, thanks for noticing that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. So is it true that the first teaser track you released of this album was the prelude?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So why choose that? Was that just to be like, oh, look at the direction we're going, or was it something different, or just?
Well, I think it's like kind of it's not a really accurate representation of what our sound traditionally has been. So that's kind of a curveball. But also, there's no vocals in it. It's an instrumental intro, so it's like it was a good. And it's the first track on the records. It's kind of like the opening theme, if you will, you know? So I think it was a perfect way to set it up.
Yeah. Do you, can you recall when you released that single, do you remember much, well, not reviews, but much like reaction, much comments on the track from fans? Did you see like a change or?
It was mainly just anticipation for what was to come, because everybody kind of knew there was going to be a record, you know, or something happening after that. So I try not to read comments and stuff like that. I have, I don't do the social media. Other people do that for me, and I try and stay away from that stuff. But like, what I did read was positive, and like, I have no idea what of the negative stuff out there, but I just try not to even look for that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
There's haters everywhere, and that's just the culture we live in today. And sarcasm is rife through everybody's mouth when they're on a keyboard, and and also music is very subjective, and I know it's not for everybody. There's plenty of things that I dislike too. I choose not to publicly talk about it, just because I don't want to take away anybody's hard work. Like there's somebody out there that appreciates it, and somebody obviously went through a lot of trouble to create it. So I have respect for everybody in that aspect.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've always been an album guy myself. So I'll listen to the whole thing at least once, because I feel like there's a level of respect to the artist. You may not like it, you may hate it, whatever, but they made this project. And I always hate people, friends, family of mine, who just pick and choose. That annoys me. I'm like, they gave a whole album.
Yeah, and that's the whole reason why we made a concept album under 35 minutes, because it's like, normally people hear that and they're like, oh man, how much time in my life do I have to invest into this? So yeah, again, just get in and get out, keep it short and sweet, get your point across, and then just get out of the room, so that it leaves it open for somebody to maybe even want to do a repeat listen on it,
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Yeah. Do you think after this album, so this album's come out, I've read reviews from Bandcamp, all around the internet, it's been very positive, so I'll let you know that. But do you think this is a trend for you guys going forward? Like, could this be part of a trilogy, or are you going to do more conceptual albums down the line, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, all of our albums started out as concept albums. It's kind of funny when you write a song, there's a concept, right? So if you have a collection, an album is a collection of songs that have multiple concepts. Oftentimes bands will just take an idea for one of those concepts, like one of those songs, and have that be the artwork and the title track. And, it's basically like a single with 9-10 other tracks. It's hard for me. I think once I get into an idea or a story, like I like to go through all the motions. So the concept album is something that I definitely enjoy, and I can relate to. I don't know what the future holds, but there have been some fans that have suggested a sequel to this album and have actually come up with plot lines and stuff that would make sense. It's pretty cool to hear that stuff, because it's stuff I never would have really thought of, so
yeah. Man, that's
so
awesome. Yeah, fucking hell. You just have your fans do all your work for you. Write the lyrics, come up with the artwork.
I love it. Like, if they want to come to the table with ideas, it means that they care and that they're engaged in the material, and that's always that's the biggest compliment we can get,
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, like I said, very positive reviews overall. Did you guys, because I know, watching interviews by certain artists and bands, sometimes a band will get inspired by a different album by a different band to make their current record. Did you guys have like a concept album that you guys all love, like, to kind of study from for this album, or just?
Not really, but I always, the ones I really like are like Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime, Iron Maiden's Seventh Son, even though that's not a full concept album. There's only a handful of songs on there that actually follow a theme, but I still vibe with that as a bit of a concept record. I recently, I missed the boat on Pink Floyd. I always kind of knew the radio songs and stuff. And I don't know, maybe the name just turned me off or whatever, but like I recently started getting into them, and some really good stuff there, The Wall and Dark Side of the Moon and stuff. I really like the album Animals a lot. But yeah, I don't know, there's not a lot of concept albums, to be honest, that I'm really into, but I'm really into like film and screenwriting and stuff. That's my side passion, so like we see things as a band in a cinematic view, and we're basically writing movies and then making albums to them,
Yeah. Actually, talking about concept albums, one concept album, well, I think it's a concept album that I always found super underrated to me, and I feel like doesn't get enough attention like your Pink Floyd's do. Or it's the album Tommy by The Who.
Yeah, a friend of mine was actually played Tommy in a musical version of that, and I went to see it, and it was actually pretty good. I never got into that, but then I see the musical and I go, okay, here's the story. Pretty cool idea, Yeah, they've done stuff like Quadrophenia and stuff like that. I was never a big Who guy, to be honest, but I have a lot of respect for anybody that's going to go out and create something like that, because it is no easy task. I'll tell you that. It's always it's one of those processes where when you get near the end, you start changing directions, and then you find holes in a lot of other areas that you have to go back and patch, and then that has to make sense with this. It's really hard, man. You go into it really enthusiastically, and you kind of know how it's going to start and end, but once you start fleshing out the middle, all that stuff changes, and you got to leave your ego behind you, because there's a lot of ideas that initially you're really attached to that you want to see happen, but you realize if they happen that it's just gonna throw everything else off. That's why there's so many, I think, lackluster films out there, because you have some decent writing, but you could tell somebody was attached to an idea that they really wanted to have happen. That is cool, but it doesn't make sense in the context of what else is happening around it,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite or favorites movie directors?
Yeah, I really like John Carpenter's stuff, especially since he scores his films too. The prelude on our album was heavily inspired by Carpenter's work. There's a newer guy on the scene named Ryan Spindell who's probably my favorite. He did an anthology called The Mortuary Collection. I just really like his cinematography. It really reminds me of like Guillermo del Toro's style, which I also really enjoy. There's another director called Chris Baugh from Northern Ireland. He did a movie called The Boys of County Hell. And he's got a series on the BBC called Wreck, which is really cool. It's about it's like a slasher series on a cruise ship. So like I've really opened myself up to like newer people on the scene. I find that like these days there's a lot smaller budgets for stuff. Obviously technology is there, but there's not a lot of money going around in the film industry, and you're finding a lot of younger directors coming out and being a lot more creative, and they're kind of spearheading their own projects where they're not just a director, they're a writer, director, cinematographer. They're doing all the heavy lifting, and they're not. You can tell like when somebody produces their own project, how much more goes into it versus trying to make somebody else's vision come to life. And with little to no budget, it's really hard to do that, So I'm always looking for new stuff, I don't know who did I really like the movie Barbarian that recently came out. Don't know who did that, so I apologize to whoever made that film. But if you're listening, that was wonderful. I really enjoy that stuff. So I'm always just looking for new people. There's obviously the classic people, the Carpenters, the Cravens, the Toby Hoopers, George Romero, Clive Barker. The list goes on and on. Who I admire, but it's always good to have some fresh new blood in here and come up with some new creative ideas.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, that guy, Del Toro, that guy, I think I'm watching one of his shows, Troll Hunters. I think he made that.
Oh,
it's a cartoon.
Yeah, awesome.
It says he made it, so it's been really interesting so far.
Yeah, he's guys like him are awesome because they're such scholars of that world. I mean, they're completely educated on the history of the scene, and so they're able to kind of take anything from influence from anybody from Hitchcock to the Spielberg, so
yeah. Nah, my favorites have always been, my two favorites have always been Tarantino and Scorsese. Those are my two. Mafia and Tarantino. I love both those guys. Yeah.
Tarantino's really interesting because he basically broke all of the rules, I mean, as far as writing goes, he really kind of reinvented the narrative of what can happen in a film, with a big wraparound too, where all these stories interconnect and stuff, which I like. And of course, I mean, Scorsese, you can't say enough about his films. My favorite thing about his style is, well, first of all, he storyboards everything himself, all of his scenes. So he knows exactly how things are going to play out. And his world famous, one shots, like there's that scene in Goodfellas where they go into the Copacabana and the restaurant and they go in outside, walk through the line, and then they walk through the kitchen and they walk through the whole restaurant. I mean, the scene is probably, a 2-minute long straight scene that has about 300 moving parts in it that all have to happen in a certain sequence in order for it to work. It's incredible. It's completely incredible. Like that stuff it blows my mind. And, that's the thing that a common viewer might not pick up on, but they still get the feeling of what's happening better than anything you can ever imagine. So you don't have to know the technicalities of it to be able to be fully immersed and engaged and in the present in a scene like that.
Yeah, I've watched that movie so many times. It's insane.
Awesome.
And also, actually, before we switch subjects, Guy Ritchie as well. He's someone I've been in love with.
Yeah. I haven't seen too much of his stuff. The ones that I have, he definitely has a style, like you definitely, what you're going to get with those films. But yeah, he's great too.
It's actually interesting because he made Aladdin, the live action, and apparently he hated being on that set because it was so restrictive. He couldn't be himself. So the movie he made after that, The Gentleman, one of my favorite movies, was him.
That's a good one.
Yeah, was him taking back creative command. He was like, I can finally be myself. Fuck Aladdin. I'm going to do me. And that's why it was such a banger, because he felt so controlled and micromanaged in Disney at Aladdin. So he's like, I'm doing this. Yeah.
That always happens when somebody else is paying for the work, So
yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. Like I love my movies, I love my TV shows, so I can definitely relate to you with that.
Right.
For this album, it has 8 tracks and 1 bonus. The rest is the bonus, right? Well, on Spotify it is.
A song called "The Last Day" is the bonus track. Yeah.
Oh well, was it? How many songs all up did you have to possibly put on the album, or was it just 9?
Just that. We've never written a full song that we never used. If it's going down the wrong path, we quickly abort ship. Like we've never had a bunch of songs and just had picked what we thought was the best. We just don't even waste our time with that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. One thing I'm curious, because obviously you're a singer, you're an artist. When you're in the booth, so the whole band, when you guys are in the booth and you're recording, like how tough is it? How tough is it to keep your energy up for the song while taking maybe 3, 4, 5 takes? How hard must that be? Like, I imagine it must be grueling.
Yeah, it is. That's why we don't really do a lot of takes. We record at live as a band, and then I'll do the vocals later, but no more than 3 to 5 takes.
Yeah.
You start to burn yourself out, and you start to question everything, and you're not going to get better on take 6 than you are on take 2. It's better to just, if it's going that way, you just come back another day. We like to just rehearse ourselves a lot before we even step into the studio and know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. So obviously by this point, you guys must just click. So like, there's no real, ideas butting heads, no real arguments. I imagine at this point, you guys, you know what you want from the album. You just make it. It's like, or do you guys still have the occasional?
No, I mean, there's times where we're just looking at each other for 8 hours, or staring at the wall with nothing, but it's eventually it comes. You just got to trust that it will,
Yeah.
There's more bad ideas than good, but a bad idea, at least it's bad. And so it can only lead to something better, and we don't commit to the bad ideas, we just quickly discard them. Like I said, there's no songs left on the cutting room floor. There's a lot of riffs and ideas for sure. But I like to record those things. So like, again, like there's musical passages on this album that I wrote 10 years ago, and I just go back and go, oh, now there's a place for this, it originally didn't inspire a full song, but now there's a place for this in a song that's already been worked on, so
yeah,
it's like a puzzle. Yeah.
Well, I am pretty keen on those, I love the occasional puzzle. Crosswords, I hate, fuck crosswords, but anything else, I'm down for.
Crosswords.
I've always sucked at crosswords. So going forward, we're talking the future, 2024. Do you guys as a band have any shred of idea how you're going to go forward, what the next album's going to be like, any kind of ideas already for the future?
No, I have no clue. And I'm not somebody who writes songs just to write them. So like, I'm not even in that mode. To be honest, when we're not on tour, I don't even pick up an instrument. That's probably bad, but I'm trying to get better at that, but I manage the band and I manage other bands, and I always have a lot of work to do, and I'm working on the conceptual stuff and the logistical things. And that seems to take up a lot of my time, but that's very inspiring and that's creative in its own way too. I've thought about it recently, and I really have no idea what's next as far as music from the band. There will be something, but we're not going to release anything before 2025. I don't even know if we're going to go and write before then. I hope we do, but we've got a lot of touring coming up, and we're fully in depth with this album cycle right now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm curious, as a band, how do you deal? So there's countless cases of bands using their emotions, whether they're super happy, super pissed off, super upset, to their advantage in the studio. They'll have a bad day and they'll go, let me record my frustration, let me record my anger. So it's natural. It's a natural, pure emotion. How do you deal with emotions within the music? Do you let it out in the songs, or do you not want it to be influenced at all?
I always have a couple sentences that I read before I go into the studio, and that's kind of it roughly hits on that point, like to make sure that I'm always singing with the highest emotion possible, because like I want that to translate, when I sing. But it's not that hard. You really have to channel it. I'm not a fan of this school of thought that like drugs make you more creative, or you know, when you're sad you can write the best music, or when you're angry you can channel that. Like I've done plenty of drugs, I've been sad plenty of times, I've been angry plenty of times, and that's not the best output is when you're happy and level-headed, to be honest. And you can, but part of the thing about writing a concept album is that like I'm able to put myself into the story and emote and translate the message that way. It's much easier for me to do that than bring my personal demons out. You know what I'm saying? It's easier to play a character and act that out instead of you know, like I'm not afraid to show my emotions or anything, but I never looked at our band as like a way to vent my personal trauma or anything like that, you know. Like it's not interested in that. It's just not for us, you know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You know, because, you know, the most famous story that comes to mind to me is the Slipknot album Iowa, how they apparently were all rock bottom and they were like, fuck it, let's record. And then it sounds animalistic. You listen to the album, it sounds fucking scary at points because of how low in life they were. So it is interesting. You can,
It's pretty heavy. It is a pretty heavy album, you know, and especially for something that came early in their career, you know. But again, I mean, look, like they had a great record deal at the time. You know, they were successful on their first album and had a lot of hype. I mean, how rock bottom were they really, you know? Like it's all you have to put everything into context, you know. You know, I mean, it's a good story, but you know, they were in the studio with Ross Robinson, and that was being paid for, and he's a good producer that gets a lot out of people. I think he did that record. I think he did. Well, he did the first, but no, he's one of those guys who gets the best performances out of people by getting into their head, you know. So I get for them, you know, but yeah, I mean, look, it works for some people, right? Just that's my personal is like not to be personal about it, you know? Yeah.
You've never like have you ever had a moment in your career where maybe it could be something small, maybe you got cut off in traffic and you're like, I wish I was in the studio right now just to scream some vocals. Like
not really. I'm pretty mellow these days. I take responsibility for everything. So if somebody cuts me off in traffic, I just blame it on myself and say it's my fault, or that maybe that person's having a bad day, and immediately I just feel better. I know that sounds weird, but it's just, you know, I've seen some crazy road rage before, and it's like it's insane the lengths people go to that they let their anger get to them, you know. So no, I've never felt the need to have that outlet, you know.
That's always what I think when I listen to the song Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. I think, did he have like a road rage incident or stub his toe and go into the studio like, break your fucking face? Like, it's just a funny image.
No, it's kind of funny. I don't know. I think that band was always meant to be a not serious band though. And I think people thought taking themselves seriously, and that's probably what caused the backlash that they got, you know. But I don't think Fred Durst is a very serious guy. I think he's just trying to no, really, I think he just tries to poke fun at himself and stuff. And I think like he's pretty misunderstood in that way, you know?
Yeah, great band back in the day. A few good albums I still listen to today. So what inspired the album cover? How did you choose that image? Who made it for you?
It's based on a physical location and out in Northern Ireland that I went to, and I visited the location, got the idea for the storyline, and wrote it based on that place. So it's our artist Don Fury, who does all of our album covers. I just sent him some photos of the place, and he drew it up.
Nice, fuck yeah! No, it looks cool. It looks very mystical. You got the hand. You got the I'm looking at it now. You got like the woods and it's very mystical, and it draws you in because sometimes all it takes is a badass or an intriguing album cover to be like, all right, I want to buy that. Let's put it.
That's half the battle, man. You got to have good art, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like back in the CD era, I know most people don't listen to CDs anymore, but back then you'd find a good album cover and you'd buy it and then put it in and just look at the booklet. Those are the good times.
Yeah. Yeah. We're very much about physical formats, you know? We're old school.
What's your opinion on streaming services? Do you think they've ruined music or helped accelerate music?
It's hard to say. I mean, I love the convenience of it. That's for sure. You know, back in the day, you know, like I would have to go to the record store and try and hope that a store had an album in stock, and then I'd buy it and it would be a surprise. There's a cool element to that because you find yourself investing a lot more time into listening to something, you know. Streaming, on the other hand, has made, I think, music is just a very cheap commodity, you know, and it's not fair to the creators for sure. You know, I mean, who put a lot of time and effort and money into this stuff. But you know, I get again, it's a double-edged sword, and technology is what it is. There's so many good things about it and so many bad things. I don't think that the streaming platforms do a very good job of curating a unique and fulfilling experience for the listener. You know, the algorithms are all off. You know, there's not. It's very hard to discover things on streaming platforms. I find you really have to kind of just know what you want to listen to. And what it turns into is people just listening to the same old stuff that they've always listened to because that's just their go-to, you know. Especially with all the technology out there, it would be great if you know, again, you mentioned artwork and liner notes. I mean, why can't you have that stuff on there? You know, I mean, it'd be great if you're into something to be able to go and do a deep dive and get into what the content really is. And because again, look, for every metal album made, there's still cover art being made, and it's not a little thumbnail, and there's still liner notes and lyrics and internal artwork. That stuff's still being made. It's just not being seen digitally. And I think that's a tragedy, you know, like I think that's you're really missing out on not being involved in it on that level. And the technology's there to do it, you know. I mean, it would even be cool if it's like, oh, here's the producer of the record, you know, you're reading the liner notes. If you could click on his name his or her name to a link and find it, then you go down the rabbit hole of everything else they've done, you know, like, that's the curation that these platforms need, but they don't do that. They just throw it out there. There's so much content out there. It's insane. Like it's a mess, you know? But again, you know, I'm not going to be the get off my lawn guy. Like I embrace technology and progress in the world. And as much as, you know, our band is still very much into the physical album. I mean, we sell a lot of CDs and LPs and cassettes, you know, like, I mean, we'll always keep doing that, you know. We're working on vinyl reissues for all of our albums right now and some box sets as well. And, yeah, I'm into that, but I just want the music available on any medium that's happening out there. I don't care what it is, you know. I want to be on all platforms because everybody likes their music in a different way. But I highly recommend, you know, people get into physical music again, because that's what really supports the artist, and they'll have a deeper connection to it if they can sit down and put an LP on the turntable and look at the album cover, read the liner notes, and, you know, just have the patience for it. Give it some time. I mean, if it's something they like, you know, it's cool to be able to check out first, you know, too. I mean, look, I'm a fan, I'm a consumer, and I'm a creator, so I see all sides of it. I really do. And whatever happens with it, you know, we're just always going to do our best to adapt and just keep going. You know, that's all you can do. And I think time is very kind to great music. You know, you can't worry about the current trends or how many followers you have now. I mean, that stuff doesn't matter. That stuff, those numbers those metrics change every month, and it's great albums live on forever, and they're discovered by more and more people as the years go on. So I'm not concerned with any immediate results to anything, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I used to collect CDs. I have a whole box of vinyls somewhere in this house. I have an original, pretty shitty condition, but still original Led Zeppelin 4. So
nice.
You
have a bunch of vinyl framed on your wall there behind you, right?
That's a green screen.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
somebody does. Okay.
Yeah. $100 a green screen cost me. But I have Led Zeppelin, and I used to collect CDs. I used to collect Slipknot, Disturbed, Cradle of Filth. Cradle of Filth was like my favorite extreme metal band growing up. The Finnish band. So yeah, and those are the albums that I remember most. Lyrics.
Yes, Cradle of Filth is a band that's totally suffered from streaming. You know, I mean, I remember when they came out, you know, in their early years, they were a pretty big band, you know, and like they were doing really well, but they've stuck with it, you know, and they've continued to tour and put out records, which is great to see. But like, I think that a band like that has really suffered from the change of the industry, because they were around before, like in the height of CD sales, you know, and you know, they're having to navigate those waters now. So it's good to see that they're still going as a band and still putting out records, you know, because bands from that era going through this transition, there's not a lot of motivation for them to even make more records, you know, besides just for their own creativity, you know, that financially it's a wash, you know?
Yeah. That always sucks to hear. Cause it's just like, you know, it's just, there's so much, I mean, as you said, streaming is great for the accessibility, but you don't really, it's kind of like everything you discover to me on streaming, it seems fleeting, because you don't have the booklet to read over. You don't have the information. You can just, you know, some people get bored within the second song and switch. There's no permanent listening to it, because as a CD, that's all you had. You bought the CD, you couldn't switch it. That's all you had. So you invested more time into it. Unlike now, you can just fast forward.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's a nice convenience to have as a fan and as a listener or whatever. But there's always another side to it, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, so conveniency for kind of shittier, you know, payment, shittier overall for the bands making the music compared to CDs and vinyl. So it's a shitty trade-off, but I don't see streaming going anywhere anytime soon. So let's just enjoy the convenience.
Yeah.
I guess we have it. All right. So it would be really exciting to see you guys make, maybe, as that fan said to you, a sequel or maybe a trilogy. Do something like the band Swans, if you know who they are. They always do like trilogy. They had the Seer, To Be Kind, and the other one was a trilogy, apparently. So great conceptual band. But you guys are focused on touring. So any chance you guys are coming to Australia?
Yeah, we're going to be coming in June of 2024. So It's our first time down there, down under, and we're really looking forward to it. My mom was actually born in Melbourne. So, my sister lived in Australia too for a couple of years. So, it's going to be really cool. We're going to head back to Japan and hit Australia on the same trip. So that's the idea.
Fuck yeah. Well, if I'm lucky enough to catch you in that concert, it would be cool to do like a live interview, like a short, like in person. Do you know the band Tyr? Tyr?
I do.
They had their first Melbourne tour this year, and I was lucky enough to get the guy, the lead singer Hedy. He hooked me up with some tickets. They were sold out. And I was like, I just want to meet you. I just want to talk to you. And he's like, yeah, come by. So I was able to get an intro for the podcast.
Awesome.
Hopefully I can catch up with you guys and meet the band, just say hi, and we can do like a short in-person interview. Yeah,
let's do it, man. If we're coming out there, you can be there. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That would be sick. Yeah. So look, I'm excited for whatever comes out in the future. Obviously, now excited for you to come to Australia. One more thing I want to know is, what is your favorite album and why?
Oh fuck. I don't know if I have a favorite album. Man, that's really tough. I don't know, maybe Master of Puppets. That's a pretty generic answer, but Van Halen 1. I think that really inspired me to play guitar at a really young age. I see. Yeah, I'm already naming more than one. Let's go with Van Halen 1. Yeah.
Nice. For me, it's always the same. You could put a gun to my head. I'll never change my two answers. I have two. My two, which I can never choose between, is Black Sabbath Paranoid and Led Zeppelin 4.
I almost said Paranoid.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I almost said Paranoid right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people write that one off because there's popular songs, or Paranoid is a simple song, or they've heard that in War Pigs and Iron Man too many times. But as a whole, it's probably their best album. I mean, it's a really great album. It's really diverse, and there's a lot of the deep cuts on that album are incredible. Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, Planet Caravan. Yeah, it's fucking great.
I mean, Iron Man alone, that track is so infectious. I remember when I was young, like preteen, my dad, who's a truck driver, he'd take me in his truck and he'd play me Iron Man, and he'd play me Paranoid, Stairway to Heaven. He'd play me these songs, and that's how I got hooked onto the old school metal, rock and metal. So yeah.
That's great. Good choices.
Yeah, no, they're like, till I die, those will always be my answers. I'm like, in my opinion, I could never get sick of those two albums. I could just play it on replay forever. All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. This will come out in 2 weeks' time.
Cool.
And yeah, I'll obviously send it to you as soon as it's done, and go from there.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll see you down under.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
See ya.